I'm Chris Yanishevsky, founder of Rebel Commerce Solutions, growth partner to startups helping fearless entrepreneurs exceed their revenue goals. Today is this first episode of the Rebellious Times podcast. We'll be hearing lessons from founders, exploring how AI is reshaping work and life, and also talking about working life. And today we're going to get to know Manish Chowdhury, CEO of Kahoot and Pulse Commerce. And we'll be getting the scoop on his innovative peer-to-peer fulfillment solution. This episode is entitled Friends with Fulfillment Benefits, Kahoot Peer-to-Peer. Hey Manish, how are you doing today, sir?
Chris, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your inaugural episode. I'm so excited to be here.
Thanks very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'm still a little nervous here doing the first episode, so I couldn't think of a better person to do it with than to you. You know, we go way back. We first worked together when I was at Endecia, and you had Go Carts, which was your business there, right? And we
Yep.
did a partnership there. And from there, we kind of continued throughout our journeys, checking in and finding ways to work together.
Yeah, I remember that vividly. So, yeah, both you and I have been in the e-commerce space for a long time. So we've got a few nuggets to share, which I'm sure your audience will appreciate the experience that you bring to the table.
Well, let's see. How about we start with talking about Manish's entrepreneurial journey from Go Kart to Kahoot. So how did you get started? How did you decide you wanted to be a CEO, get into business and build these great businesses?
That's a great question, Chris. I never decided to become the CEO. Nobody at my company would take that job. So somebody had to step up. Going back to the very early days, I started my entrepreneurial journey in my dorm room at the University of Bridgeport, Connecticut. And that's where I got started. Started with, as you said, Go eCart was our first product. And then later we rebranded to Pulse Commerce, which is a full enterprise class order and inventory management system, back office for brands and retailers. And in 2018, I started Kahoot, and which is something I'd been working on for a very long time in my spare time, which I have almost none of, but I was still working. I'm happy to share more about where the idea originated, but I come from an entrepreneurial background. My parents, my uncles, everybody in my close family is a business owner. So I knew that I wanted to build something. I wanted to build something that was of value and importance and leave the world slightly better than I found when I came in. So that was the driving force. The CEO title is less important to me. It's more about building something, working with a team, and making an impact.
Brilliant. Makes sense. That's what I'm trying to do. Since I left the corporate world as well, I'm seeing how I can make an impact. Hopefully this podcast will at least provide some amusement to the audience. So what are the let's move over to Kahoot peer-to-peer. So what are the who are your customers there? Who are your target audience? And what are the problems that you're trying to solve? What are the problems you saw out there that you thought, we could do this in a better way?
Yeah. Yeah. So Kahoot was a solution that came out of sheer observation and seeing inefficiencies in the marketplace. I'm a fanatic believer of creating efficiency through business model innovation. That is one of my key strengths. I look at what's happening and how it is happening and figure out if there's a better way to achieve the same goal. So we started our journey at Kahoot at peer-to-peer fulfillment, which is forward logistics, where we enable brands that have warehouses of their own and they do fulfillment for their own orders. We found that many of these brands, a large portion of them, have excess capacity in their warehouse, which was going to waste. It was not being monetized. Think of it like before Airbnb. If you had a spare bedroom or spare house and you're not monetizing it, that is doing disservice to yourself because your mortgage rates are fixed, your utilities are mostly fixed. So we took that same concept and said, why can these brands who do a fantastic job for themselves help other brands? And when we presented this idea to few in early adopters, they loved it. They're like, you know, a brand in New York wanted to reach customers in California in a economical ground shipping, and likewise, a brand in California had the reverse problem of reaching customers on the East Coast, and that's where we build this network such that brands can collaborate. Ultimately, Kahoot, even the name as it suggests, we are all in cahoots. That means we work together to improve, create better margins, better profits, meet and exceed customer expectations. So we simply took that concept to reverse logistics, where the upside is even greater. Because if you look at the way how reverse logistics or returns are processed, it hasn't changed in the last 50 years. Going back to the catalog days, you want to return an item that you purchased from a brand. Let's say Amy is in Los Angeles and she wants to return a pair of pants that she bought. No matter what method she uses, whether she ships it back to the brand or she takes it to a UPS store or any kind of drop-off facility, that item will make it back to the brand, and then the brand will have to inspect the item, put it back on the shelf, and hopefully sell it to another customer. It's highly inefficient. So what Kahoot did was essentially enabling Amy to ship the item to the next customer who wants that item. So let's call her Sarah in this case, and skip the warehouse completely. So you're eliminating one entire leg of shipping, and that results in enormous upside, especially in current environment where the brands are looking for profitability. Happy to elaborate more because there's a lot more to unpack here, but that's the high level of peer-to-peer collaboration across all facets of logistics.
Okay, so Kahoot peer-to-peer not only uses in a kind of a Uber model excess warehouse space, it also enables the warehouse to process returns for other sellers.
No, so in this particular case, it's a peer-to-peer between consumers as opposed to the fulfillment, which is peer-to-peer between brands.
I see. Got it.
So Amy is the person returning the pair of pants, and assuming that the product is in good condition, we will enable somebody like Sarah who goes on the website, the brand's website, to purchase this item. We call it open box rather than, because the packaging may have been compromised or rather opened, but the product is like new. There's nothing wrong with the item. So only those items are eligible for peer-to-peer returns. And rather than Amy shipping the item back to the warehouse in Dallas, she will ship the item directly to Sarah. Let's say she is in Wyoming. So this way you're skipping the entire warehouse leg altogether.
Fantastic. And is there a discount for the buyer for receiving this open box item that they purchase?
Yes, we do provide a discount because the item may not be in the original packaging, but there's nothing wrong with the item. So this is incentivizing circular commerce and basically freeing up the brand or the retailer from handling returns altogether, because we believe that 60% of all items that are returned, are eligible for peer-to-peer. And in certain verticals like apparel, accessories, you can have return rate that exceeds 20-30%. So imagine 30% of your goods being returned back, and if you don't handle it well, and currently most brands, most retailers, they lose a lot of money compared to peer-to-peer, which is 64% less cost, 64% savings goes directly to the brand.
Wow. Okay, so that's a huge saving. Let me see. So hang on, I'm scrolling through my list of questions here because I'm very well prepared for my.
No worries, no worries.
Do you have any examples of businesses, or I know you mentioned apparel? Are there any other product vertical categories that are really benefiting from this retail?
Yeah, so I believe that peer-to-peer returns will be the new standard for returns, period. Because if you look at it, we're talking about self-driving cars, autonomous vehicle, drone delivery, and we are handling returns as though it's 1940s. There's been no difference, no change whatsoever. So this technology is ripe for adoption right now. And almost all products that are eligible for returns and repurposing, meaning if a brand can receive the item and pass it on to the next customer, all those items are eligible for peer-to-peer returns. There's certain categories where this is perhaps returns themselves are a challenge. Things like food, anything consumable, or anything that has hygiene. If you think about perhaps undergarments or what have you, or pharmaceutical, if you're dealing with vitamins or nutraceuticals, those, no, no, I don't think most customers do not want the item that was returned for whatever reason and for safety considerations. So those are the only items that most brands, they take a different approach to returns altogether. But you name it, auto parts, um, home decor, furniture, footwear, apparel, accessories, books, music, CDs. I mean, the vertical is very, very large, and it's no different. It's like combines all the best of how the traditional returns, and I call it traditional even for the folks who are at the cutting edge of returns today, because they're really orchestrating the same model, but digitizing that model. The innovation hasn't come in, and Kahoot comes in with a slightly different angle, which is a huge benefit to the brand.
Yeah, yeah. So the brand saves money on returns, so making the average sale more profitable. Um, the first customer, do they receive a financial benefit for sending the return to the second customer?
Yes, that's a great question, Chris. So we are building a large-scale consumer network for several reasons. Fraud prevention is top of the agenda. Ensuring transaction success between Amy and Sarah is hugely important to Kahoot and our customers, our brands. So the only difference is in this particular example, Amy may have to wait, 24 to 48 hours from the time she submits her return before she can take action with respect to shipping the item. So, and that window can shrink and will shrink as more and more brands join the Kahoot network, and we have very high liquidity. So we do incentivize Amy because Amy has the product. She's the one returning it. We want her to do a good job of packing it properly, putting it back in the box it came in, and sending it in a good way to Sarah. Because and so we've created incentives that if Amy does all those things, she will actually receive an additional incentive besides her return refund amount. Let's say the brand was willing to refund 100% of the value of the order to the brand, to the customer. In that case, Amy will get that, plus she will get an additional cashback incentive from Kahoot to do a good job. And we measure all that through a peer-to-peer rating system. So if you think about Uber, when you get off the car, completed your ride, you're going to rate the driver, and the driver will rate you. And both those ratings are equally important. In our case, it's Amy and Sarah rating the return experience.
Fantastic. Okay. And which platforms is this accessible on?
Yeah. So right now we've started with Shopify. Shopify is a plug and play solution right now. However, we will be launching this for all other leading platforms later in the year. But right now, we are welcoming Shopify merchants because a large portion of our target customers, merchants, and brands operate on Shopify.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. What about the scale of the network? Where are we at in terms of the usage of this, the number of participants, and is there kind of a critical mass you think you want to get to really have this as a service that consumers are used to and excited about?
Yeah, so right now we are in the early stages of adoption. So we're working very closely with our brand partners to ensure that this model is successful, and we are taking feedback. And so we welcome customers who wish to join. They can go to Kahoot.ai, fill out the contact us form, and let us take a look at your data to determine what kind of upside we can create. We will be launching this and making it available more widely to others. But the good news is brands can take advantage of it immediately because all of this is happening on the brand's website. The shoppers are not going to a third party website to do anything. It is all under the brand umbrella. And in fact, it makes the brand look good because they're supporting social awareness. So it's a eco-friendly, environmentally sound solution, because remember, we are eliminating one entire leg of shipping, and that all that carbon footprint. Second, 64% less cost. No brand can dispute that because those are hard numbers, hard math. If you eliminate one entire leg of shipping, inspection in the warehouse, receiving, shelving, and then pick pack to the next customer, those are real tangible savings. And best of all, it is 4 times faster. If you utilize the traditional method, it takes about 13 days from the time the brand receives the item, inspects it, puts it on the shelf, and ships it to the next customer. That's the best case scenario. Whereas Kahoot peer to peer can be 4 times faster, which means the brand gets to collect money faster, turn inventory faster, and you don't end up with 30% of inventory that is just sitting aside at the end of the season. Imagine if you're a seasonal brand, apparel, you're not going to be able to sell those items after a certain time. So, for example, all the winter gear, the time for that is over, at least on the East Coast.
Fantastic. So it sounds like everybody wins. The product gets there faster. Money is saved by both the brand, Sarah and Amy. We need to get this out there. I would love to see this. I used to work at Walmart, so obviously I'd love to see Walmart engaged in these type of activities. And I bet a lot of e-commerce merchants are, looking for ways to save money, to gain efficiencies with the new tariffs that have been implemented. I know that's causing a lot of concern. Have you heard a lot in relation to the tariffs from your merchants and how they're approaching this kind of new world of inbound costs?
Yeah, so tariffs are indeed impacting all brands, all retailers that source from overseas. So, the full impact of that will be felt next month, which is tomorrow onwards, May. We already know that the inbound container volume from China has been dropping and is dropping. So this is a pretty sticky and tough situation. And more importantly, it's the uncertainty. We don't know if the tariffs are going to stay long term. It is there today. So it's very hard for brands and our clients to go reshuffle their supply chain. It takes years, if not decades, to build resilience with your manufacturing vendors, partners, quality assurance. You cannot just uproot it and move that to India or Vietnam or some other country overnight. I mean, the challenges that even the biggest brands like Nike are facing. So, I think our clients, it's a mixed bag right now. Some are considering raising prices, and they're just some have bought stockpiled a little bit of inventory before the tariffs go into effect, and some are waiting and watching, and some are not going to participate in the Amazon Prime Day that's coming up in July because whatever inventory they have, they want to sell it at full price. They don't want to discount it, for Prime Day. So the future right now in the retail world seems a bit uncertain. And so right now we are seeing a mixed reaction. We hope to get more clarity later next month.
Yeah, and things change fast, right? One day there's a tariff, the next day it might be parked for 3 months. We don't quite know where we're at. I sometimes wonder, will there be a lot of containers kind of sat there with products where merchants are delaying clearing them through customs in the hope that the tariff goes away before they have to pay. It's if a lot of uncertainty there.
Yeah, yeah, and there's some merchants who are also utilizing some clever solutions. These are called tax-free zones, where you don't pay the tariffs up front. You would pay them when you actually ship the goods to your end customer. So it's just deferral of tariffs. Let's say you bring in a container load, you have to pay the tariff upon arrival, and you have no guarantee that your customers are going to be willing to pay 30% more or whatever amount you wish to charge. Now, you're now stuck because you already paid the taxes and duties and customs, and you can't sell and you need to liquidate. So all these things, there is no silver bullet that I've found. Obviously the merchants, the brands that have onshore manufacturing, are at an advantage right now because their costs are not going to go up. But if you look further down the supply chain, those people that you're sourcing goods from, they may be purchasing and getting their raw materials from overseas. So net, you know, in the year 2000, I remember the book by Thomas Friedman, The World is Flat. And now we're trying to make the world unflat again and make it round, whatever that is. So, these things are very, very challenging, and we don't know what's going to happen next week or let alone perhaps even next day. So I think, brands and retailers need to stay alert. I would recommend not making any long-term commitments just yet because we don't know how this is going to play out. So that's the state. That's what we are recommending our clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Good advice there. Right, Manish. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much. Any merchants who are interested in the peer-to-peer solution, reach out to Kahoot, and let's see if we can get this innovative solution saving money and gaining efficiencies for e-commerce merchants.
Yep. And hopefully have an impact on the planet because we will cut down carbon emissions. So any of the folks who are interested, there is a low barrier to entry and there's only upside. So head out to www.kahoot.ai and fill out the contact us form. We'll love to chat with you and hopefully ease some of the profit pressure that you're facing on the sales front. This is a solution that's designed to save money, save time, and help all the parties.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Manish. I look forward to speaking to you again soon. All the best.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me.